going to conquer, and we're going to take some. Is that understood? Yes, sir. That's what we're going to do, sweethearts. We are going to go and get some. All right, people, on the ready line. Are you me? Yeah! Are you me? Yeah! What are you?
Exceptional Parent Magazine's August back-to-school issue provides tips on preparing students with disabilities for an easier transition from summer vacation back to school. You can read this issue and past archive issues for free by signing up for EP at www.epmagazine.com.
Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel, a knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of Reach Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Marines are made for this. Made for the calling only warriors can answer. Made from an unshakable belief in our nation and a strength that comes from the determination to win together. But you'll have to earn your place among us, because you don't join the Marines. You become one.
Hello and welcome again to Oscar Mike Radio. This show is part of my countdown to number 500. Oscar Mike Radio is co-produced with Sinister One Productions. What's your podcast doing? I want to thank my sponsors, Joyce Asack of Asack Real Estate, Echo 6 Creations, and my supporters, Kason Shaving Company, Exceptional Parent Magazine, and Fight Camp. I'm just going through this year and I have been blessed to talk with, learn from, and get to know some amazing guests, and this next guest is no different. I just love how this stuff is coming together. I'm so excited, I can hardly contain myself, but here it is. I want to welcome Chris Brewer to Oscar Mike Radio. Chris, you served in the Army and you were part of the original OG Army Rangers, and I can't wait to learn any more. Welcome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, you don't look like an old man. You don't look like a young man. You look like a solid, stud of a dude. But I'm reading about you, that you came across my wire, and I'm digging into what you're doing, and I'm like, wait a minute. I get to talk to one of the people that I learned about in boot camp. Even though I was a Marine, there were certain people that were mentioned in boot camp as the prototypical soldier, and some Army individuals did get mentioned. And I believe your name was one of them way back when in San Diego, sir. So I'm just excited to talk with you. And the thing that got me, back then and now is I understood it. You served as a Mustang, you served enlisted and became an officer, but helped start the Army Rangers. Before we get into all that, and it's all good, give me a little background of who Chris is, who you are, and what prompted you to even join the military.
Yeah, and I got to correct one thing that you said there. I didn't really help start the Rangers.
Okay.
We were reactivating the first battalion that was active in World War II. And when I was in the Ranger Battalion, I was one of the plank holders in '74. But I was a brand new private first class, really had no idea what the heck I was getting into, and spent most of the first year trying to keep up and still wondering, is this really something that I want to do? But I was fortunate enough to work with some really incredible officers and NCOs who, at, for the most part, were survivors of the Long Range Reconnaissance Patrols, Special Operations Group, or Studies and Observations Group, SOG,
Was
during
that
Vietnam.
was that the MACV SOG service members?
Correct. Some of the guys were MACV SOG, some of them were Phoenix Project, some SF guys. Most of them were out of the LRP teams. Every sergeant in the battalion when I got there had Vietnam experience with one of those units. So it was about as hard a unit in the terms of leadership as you could find in the United States Army. I was along for the ride for that first year or two.
But what was it like getting that leadership perspective right there? Because it's not like you're going to, you know, look, we're all professionals, but there's something about being around that caliber of leadership that you didn't have the typical Army experience.
Yeah, the Army had a lot of problems in 1974, right after Vietnam. Morale was down because of the way it ended primarily, but we also had drug and alcohol, and there was racial tension. There was a lot of things that were going on. And Creighton Abrams was the Army Chief of Staff at the time. And his solution to try and bring the Army's morale and standards back up where he thought it should be was to form the 1st Ranger Battalion. And he got the best sergeants, the best officers he could find. Uh, you had to go through a review board to even come there as a private. And
Really?
oh yeah, the only
E1,
reason,
E2.
yep, you had to go. They checked your record, made sure you didn't have any bad marks, that you were moldable into what they wanted to be. And his vision was that we were going to be the best light infantry battalion in the entire world, able to go anywhere and do anything we were called upon to do. And that after the first 3 years, the leaders from that unit were going to go out and bring the rest of the United States Army up to that standard. And that was the vision. That I was fortunate enough to get in there while all those guys were training us and teaching us what they knew. And that's really helped me throughout my entire life.
Now, how the process works? So you went through the first 3 years.
Yes.
What was your rank when you got through year three? Was you were still like a specialist? Were you a corporal?
I was a Sergeant E5. I came there as a PFC. I was in the 20th Special Forces National Guard and going to college as a PFC. So I'd been through the medical AIT and basic training, but I hadn't been to jump school. And then the Ranger Bat showed up. I was struggling in college, paying bills and working nights and weekends, and dropped out and volunteered for the Ranger Battalion. And my record was good, so I was accepted. But I wanted to be an infantryman if I was going to be a ranger. So I went back to Fort Polk, got the 11 Bravo MOS, got jump school en route, and joined the battalion in the middle of their activation test after they came over from Fort Benning. But that was an experience.
I was going to say, how did you don't just fit in? I mean, it's already like in progress. What was that like?
It's not so much that you fit in when you come in there, it's survive. Uh, you realize that you're in with a pack of wolves. And to be quite frank, as a new private, a lot of it initially is fear. So, oh my word, what have I gotten myself into? And when you get an order, you carry it out. Those are some fairly scary dudes. And over a period of time, they bring you along. They're used to training troops. They're used to pushing you to do things beyond what you believe you could do. And after the first probably year, I was coming around. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. We'd recite the Ranger Creed every morning at PT. And that Ranger Creed, if you haven't read it before, read through it. It's in the first page of the book. They live that creed, every word of that creed, right down to never shall I leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy. And I will drive on to the Ranger objective, though I be the lone survivor. They're dead serious about that, and they've proven it in combat. There's been guys that were left behind in Iraq at the Hadifa Dam. They were attacked by an armor unit, a light infantry unit attacked by heavy armor and
Oh, wow.
forced to withdraw. And there was a guy that was left behind. That light infantry battalion reorganized, reassembled, picked up extra anti-armor weapons and some support, and attacked the armor unit to get back to their guy. And when they got to him, he was still alive. And the first thing he said when they showed up was, "I knew you would come back." So they lived the creed.
That's People think that's just normal, but that's not always the case. It's like, hey, you know what? The acceptable loss kicks in. We can move on. But yeah, I mean, we got our view of that when we were taught. We were not taught, but we were taken over what Black Hawk Down was, and why more lives didn't get lost, and how you all were able to, complete that objective and bring those guys home. You come out of this as a sergeant. Did you go right back into the regular army, or did you still stay in the Ranger Battalion?
Um, yeah, it's a little bit of a story behind that. Making rank wasn't easy, but you could make it quickly if you were meeting the standards. So I passed the Ranger version of the Expert Infantryman badge, and I made E4 corporal. And then they put me in some leadership positions to try me out. And when I was eligible for E5, they sent me to Ranger School. And I made Sergeant E5 out of Ranger School on my second year. Uh, that was coming up on the third year, and that's when all of the senior leadership were leaving. We had a lot of guys going out. I wound up with 2 months after I got out of Ranger School as a brand new E5. I was a squad leader, section leader, the 90 millimeter in the weapons platoon. The platoon sergeant left. I had 1 week time and grade more than the only other sergeant in the platoon, so I became the platoon sergeant. And then the platoon leader left. And then I became the platoon leader and the platoon sergeant because there were only two sergeants left in the unit. We went through a deployment to Alaska on the North Slope. Uh, we went to Panama, Jungle Operations Training Course. That was not sitting around. That was some serious leadership challenges for a brand new buck sergeant. And then we had some senior leadership came in. There was just a whole wave of new people, and we did not have our Ranger selection and assessment program yet. So some of the people who came in didn't last a month. Some of them came in and they tried to lower the standards to something they could deal with. But I was thoroughly indoctrinated by that time. I'd drunk the Kool-Aid and I was a bit disgusted with how things were going. So I left the service, tried to be a civilian, didn't work, came right back in and went to the 509th in Italy, an airborne battalion combat team, try something different.
Now, just go back a little bit. When you say Kool-Aid, what does that mean? Because it sounds like almost your experience is like the Marine Corps experience, where we have to drink the Kool-Aid. What's the Ranger Kool-Aid?
Ranger Kool-Aid is a Ranger creed.
Okay.
That's and you live it, memorize it, and everything in it. It's no joke. And oddly enough, we were compared to the Marines. We went to Little Creek, Virginia, to the amphibious warfare school, and we had Marine haircuts, and we had hoo-ah, and we had all the things. We even got into a competition with them on that obstacle course that you've got down there at Little Creek, and we set the new record, which did upset the Marine commander no end.
Sure it did. Ranger Creed, recognizing that I volunteered as a ranger, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession, I will always endeavor to uphold the prestige, honor, and high esprit de corps of the Rangers. That's a good
Yep.
start. I'm kind of getting chills reading this thing. This is it's you don't hear about that very much in because other services get more time in the sun, if you will. But I can see where if you really believe that and adhere to that, you look at life differently, don't you?
Yeah, and I had the opportunity after I retired to run across the guys again in Afghanistan. And even there, when they were going out on a mission, before they would get on the helicopters, all the guys would gather up, they put their arms around one another in a circle, and they would recite that creed, right down to never shall I leave and fall a comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy. And they're dead serious. There was a officer, I don't wish I could remember his name. I think he was a battalion commander or a regimental commander. And he said in an interview not that long ago that one of the things that he learned, especially in all the combat missions that the Ranger Battalion went through, is that when a Ranger Battalion goes on a mission, it's in reality a suicide mission. It's only given to the Rangers because no one else can do it. No one else wants to touch it. They're not sure if it's going to work, but for some reason, it is of vital importance to the United States and it has to be done. And those are the best guys they've got. And they fully anticipate that it may fail. And if it fails, none of them are going to come back. And when the guys go out, they've got to go with that in their mind that our country believes in us. They think we can do it. No one else can do it. And we got to get it done.
Now, how long did you serve, Chris?
24 years.
24 years. So you joined in 74, right?
Originally 73 in the National Guard. I went
Okay.
active in 74.
So you on the tail end of Black Hawk Down? Did you have any experience with that at all? Did you observe from a ways, or because you got out right around the time that went down?
Yeah, I retired in 97 and I wasn't involved in Blackout Hawk Down. I went into Special Forces in the late 80s and stayed with them until I retired.
So, and I'm a Marine, so help me out here. So you have the regular Army, you have Airborne Assault Rangers, and then Delta. Is Delta what you're talking about? Special Forces?
No. Okay, Ranger Battalion is a light infantry battalion.
Okay.
Think about a Marine Corps battalion, except they've got the same training that SOTG gets on clearing rooms. They've got the best equipment that the Army can provide. They've got vehicles, and they're one of their primary missions, not their only one by any means, is airfield seizure. If you need to go seize an airport like Grenada
Yep.
and open an airhead so that you can bring in an invasion force, you send the Ranger Battalion. That's one of their primary missions. Um, Special Forces, 12-man teams normally only operate on a 12-man team, but they can operate up to a company level on like in counterterrorism missions. But the primary mission really of Special Forces is to go to another country, work with the host nation country, and help them fight the battle. By, with, and through the host nation forces is the mantra of the Special Forces. They're a force multiplier. Um,
That's
Delta,
more that's more Green Berets, right?
that's Green Beret Special Forces.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
and and a lot of people don't understand. Special operations encompasses Ranger Battalion, Task Force 160 helicopters, Army Special Forces, Navy SEALs, Air Force Special Operations, Delta Force, and other units that are all fall under the Special Operations umbrella. Special Forces are your Green Berets. The Delta, of course, is the premier hostage rescue counterterrorism unit. They operate in relatively small groups, but it's close to about a company size. And Special Forces also has elements that train for that mission, but that's not their primary mission. They're more of a emergency backup force that may be in theater in the event that Delta needs somebody to hold the fort until they get there. The Navy SEALs, of course. I'm sure you're familiar with the Navy SEALs. They've got enough movies and books out. Everybody should know what they do now. And
That's the thing, right? Is everybody knows Navy SEALs, but you ask people what Green Berets are or what Rangers are, and it's like, well, they're kind of this, they're kind of that. I'm not really sure. And I've always found that interesting is Navy SEALs instantly recognizable. The other special services are there, but it's viewed differently. I find it very interesting, and I'm not sure why.
there's an old Ranger regimental sergeant major said something once that has always stuck with me. And think about when they sent SEAL Team 6 to get Osama bin Laden.
Yeah,
And that's a classic SEAL mission. Deep behind enemy lines, assault force. They're going to go in, they're going to hit a very specific target, and they're going to destroy it and get back out. Delta is very similar. They're going to carry out the same kinds of missions, and there are some other things they do, but they're on the same par. Special Forces, 12 guys are going to go out thousands of miles away. If they get in trouble, nobody's coming to help because they're too far away and no one will have time to get there. So they're on their own. But the regimental sergeant major said that when the SEALs are in trouble, they call Rangers. When Delta's in trouble, they call Rangers. When the Rangers are in trouble, they call more Rangers. And in a nutshell, that's it. That's your 911 force is the Rangers.
so before we move on to other parts of your career, and and I'm a Marine, I can't believe I'm saying this. We're our Kool-Aid is, first to fight for right and freedom, Chris. But your motto says Rangers lead the way. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this. I can't believe I'm doing this. What is it? Do Rangers lead the way really, or how's that work? I'm not sure
Uh,
I want to know the answer.
the motto Rangers lead the way came during the Normandy invasion.
Okay.
And and the Rangers were on the beach. They'd secured the initial head, and there was a Ranger company commander that was there when the ground force commander for the invasion force was getting ready to move up off the beach. And he turned over to the Ranger commander and said, Rangers, lead the way. You guys go up front. And it was Roger that, and away they went. And that's stuck ever since. Um, Rangers may not be the first guys there, although they do have a special troops battalion now. And Halo qualified, Scuba qualified. One of their missions is to go in ahead, often ahead of Delta and sometimes ahead of SEALs, and put eyes on target, and then call back and let them know what's going on before they go in. But if you've got a really bad situation, Grenada, Panama,
Yeah. Yeah.
for the regular forces, Rangers are going to be leading the way.
What's happening to you during this time? Because there's a lot of change in, the world, change in, the political climate here, change in the armed forces. As you're seeing the Rangers develop and become what they are now, what's happening to you, and what's your view on where you started versus where you left?
Uh, just admiration for what these kids do now.
Yeah.
They're light years ahead of what we did. I mean, when they started out at Fort Benning, we didn't have rucksacks yet, so everybody was taking the old butt pack and filling it full of sand and rocks to have weight for the road marches. And these kids now have got the finest equipment in the world. They've got the best sport doctors to take care of them. That they really are Olympic level athletes that are being prepared and trained. I missed out. I wish I'd been with them when they are where they are now, but that's okay.
You get out, and we're talking with Chris Brewer. He joined the Army. He was part of the Rangers, part of the Special Forces. What was your transition like getting out after 24 years and serving in such a high speed, environment?
Difficult. Um, I made all of the mistakes that you can make on transition. I hit every one of them.
No.
I was a I was a Charlie 1-1 commander, Charlie 1st Battalion, 1st Special Forces Group commander in Okinawa. And they have door kicker mission. So they're organized that if you did have a hostage situation, they would go down and they would deal with it as best they could until Delta or someone else could show up. And that was part of the concept, just to have an on-call. And they call it the crisis response force now, I guess. Um, and there's other things that we do that can't be talked about. But I was a team leader there, and then I was the company commander there for 2 years. And with 24 years time in service, I wasn't going to make lieutenant colonel, to be realistic. I could stayed around for 30 and maybe made it, but unlikely. So I decided to go ahead and retire out of Okinawa. Now, had I been smart, I would have taken one of those staff jobs and come back to the United States where I could start meeting people and think about what I was going to do afterward, maybe buy a house, make some payments while I still had a salary, all of those good things. But no, I wanted to walk out with my head up, get back to the States, hit the ground, look around, go, well, what am I going to do now? And it was a struggle.
When did the struggle start? Because there's a lot of problems with getting out, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who made mistakes. But how did you get through those mistakes?
Struggle started as soon as I hit the ground.
Oh, well.
And resumes, and I started going around. First, I had to decide what I even wanted to try. And there wasn't anything that was really attractive that I could see. And the few things I did apply to, people would read the resume and they'd hand it back to me and say, well, that's really impressive and a little bit scary, but I really don't think there's anything for you here. Ultimately, I went to a job fair where they were hiring government contractors. And I got a job being a threat options analyst for Army Materiel Command. And basically, my job was to go out and look at the factories where Army Materiel Command makes the explosives, makes the artillery shells, the ammunition, and give them a target folder and a briefing that if I were Osama bin Laden and I wanted to come blow up your facility, this is what I would do and this is how I would do it. And that was kind of frustrating too, because in 1996, 95, everybody was, it's the end of history. There won't be any more wars. Everything is great. We don't need to spend all this money on defense. We need to open our gates and quit hiding behind fences and get the Army story out and put up websites so everybody knows that we're the only place in the United States Army where explosives are manufactured for everything that we make right here at this one place.
Like right there.
Oh, and here's pictures of the stuff. And here's where the commander's office. Now, I'm serious. My first year, I'd sit there with a beer in front of the computer at home and I'd make the target folder because everything I needed was on the website.
That's hard to believe, Chris.
Yeah, isn't it though? I actually gave a briefing at Natick Labs.
Okay.
2 months before 9/11. And I told him, says, look, you're exposed. This is how you're exposed. These are things that you need to do to go ahead and improve your defenses. And the head of Natick Labs, a civilian, Department of Army civilian, smiled and looked at me and said, well, Mr. Brewer, that's very interesting. But do you really think that a Middle Eastern terrorist is going to come to Boston, of all places, and attack something inside the United States? I don't even lock my door at night. And then 2 months after that, 9/11 happened, and I was invited to come back and give that briefing one more time.
Because wasn't it, I've read about this where Logan Airport was selected because they knew they wouldn't be, it was Portland, those two airports were selected for that reason. They knew they wouldn't be assessed as hard or something. It was something like that, right?
Yep. Logan was one of them. I don't recall the other one, whether it was JFK or LaGuardia, but they selected it based on the security.
What was the temperature in the room when you got done with your presentation the second time?
The guy who was there first time didn't show. His deputy took the briefing and got a copy of it that he could pass on to his boss later.
Did that start a pathway to do more consulting, not only for the Army, but outside of the Army? Was your expertise sought out by people, because of what you're able to do?
Well, let's just say it was a target-rich environment for jobs after that. Um, the company that I was working for, an AMC, asked me to write up a contract proposal for taking what I was doing on the target folders one more step and start doing red team exercises. And basically, the concept of Marchenko used to do red team, and it got a bad reputation because he kind of went out of his way to embarrass people, but probably needed embarrassing and deserved it richly, but nonetheless, no one wanted that. So we did it a little bit differently. I'd do the target folder, I'd find areas of vulnerability, and then I would take a team of 6 guys and we'd go out there a couple of days ahead of time. And we'd go around the facility, seeing what we could find in the local community that would be of use to us. And you'd be amazed what we would discover. And then we'd come in on day one, we'd give them a briefing. I said, this is everything that we found from your information on your websites, from open source information, and from the local community on how we could go about and attack you. Now, here's what we're going to do. On day one, we're going to put hostile surveillance on your gates. This is what hostile surveillance looks like. And we talk about the guy with the video camera across the street, the guy with a fake cover story trying to get inside, the contractor who's going to bring in a load of fertilizer for the commander's wife's quarters, all the various things that we try to do. And this is what you need to look out for, and this is how you need to counter it. And then the role players would come do that, and we'd work with them. And then on the last day, after they had a little bit of training, we'd come inside and we'd go to a key node and we'd plant fake explosives or walk into the commander's office with, good afternoon. If we had guns, this would be a very bad day for you right now, and this is how we did it. And then we do the outbrief. We did that for 2 years on every AMC facility in the United States, 32 bases. And then after that, Afghanistan had happened. We'd already been in there for about a year. I had a friend that was a old Delta buddy that asked if I'd like to be the head of security for KBR operations in Afghanistan. So I went there and stayed there for almost 5 years.
Did you enjoy that more or less than the Army, or was it like it sounds like, I don't know, you're not saying it, but I can almost sense that you had a lot of fun doing that, Chris. Like
I
it's
won't,
different playing offense.
not as much fun as being in the Army. It was an education.
Okay.
Um, but most of what I did was educating people because my job as a security manager, in theory, was to coordinate force protection for the unarmed contractors while they were building the fire bases. So I'd have to talk to our guys that, look, this is what you got to do to stay alive. And yes, I understand that the Afghan that you've got working for you in the motor pool is totally reliable, but you cannot ask him to smuggle in vodka and hashish for you because that's not a good thing to do. And and part of my job would be to intercede on that and stop that. And then there was the military side. Yes, sir, I understand that your air conditioning is out. It's 3 o'clock in the morning and you want it fixed right now. But I am not sending these 2 guys in an unarmored pickup truck with no guns through the streets of West Kabul at 3 o'clock in the morning. You are going to have to send a vehicle that's got guys with guns on it to escort them out there. And if that's just you, no, you just with your pistol is not going to be enough of an escort because if we get shot at, you're going to run away. And we both know that. So, in a nutshell, that was kind of my job for 5 years.
Did you like seeing, your recommendations put into place? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is you find the holes, you find the problems. What was it like going back and trying to did you ever retest the holes and problems?
Oddly enough, yeah. I was with KBR for about 3.5 years, and I went back again after I came back to the States. I did some stuff in the States, worked for State Department for about a year, and went back to Afghanistan for another year and a half, almost 2 years. And the second time, I was a force protection advisor for the Deputy Commanding General for U.S. Forces Afghanistan. And that job was to go back out to the FOBs that I'd helped build and see what their force protection looked like now and find the same things. Uh, yeah, we can't get in the gate. They won't let us in the gate because roads are black and everyone has to go through deep vehicle search. We're Americans. Here's our IDs. I don't care. Commander said everybody goes through deep vehicle. You're going to have to sit outside in line with all the other Afghan trucks. And the only way we'd get in is we'd call somebody inside, one of the Afghan workers inside, who went downtown and got pizzas for the gate guards and would bring them to them. And when that guy would show up and he would vouch for us, they'd go, "Oh, okay, if they're with you. Yeah, you can come in now." So,
That's wrong. Oh, that's that. But that's I don't know. That's an effective test. That's an effective test to. It's a social engineering test.
it is.
But pizza is can be a weapon. How about that?
Oh yeah, it's a you just be amazed at what you find, and it is a combat zone. But that was one of the hazards of the way that we did it over 20 years is rather than Colin Powell, when he was a Secretary of State, he had a Powell doctrine, and I'm paraphrasing this, but his standard was that the United States does not go to war unless it is of overwhelming importance to the United States.
No.
And if we do, we're going with overwhelming force, everything we have. And we're not going unless we have very specific objectives of what we want to attain and accomplish with that force. And we're going to have a withdrawal plan before we go in. So that made perfect sense. We didn't have that with Afghanistan or with Iraq. We knew what we wanted to do initially. We wanted to get in, we wanted to break the Taliban, we wanted to get bin Laden, but then the politicians get involved and we're going to nation build. And what does that mean? And then you spend 20 years trying to figure out what that means and how to do it. And in the process, you're building fire bases and forward operating bases that have Burger Kings and Dairy Queens and laundry service. And you got all these folks living in the hardened barracks. And most of them never fired their weapon during the entire tour that they're in that combat zone. And the biggest risk that they're facing is either food poisoning or the rocket or mortar attack. And a very small percentage you actually go out into the countryside and face the enemy. And that's not a way to fight a war.
You develop all this experience through your career in and outside the Army, and then you start writing. What what prompts you to say, you know what, I want to write some of these books? You've written Old School Ranger was the first book, and it was interesting, from that perspective. But also, and I'm going to have the link in the Ask Mike Radio show post. You have the book now, In the Shadows Between Wars. Where did this idea to become a writer start originating with you?
Uh, we would get together for reunions in the Ranger Battalion and we'd share the stories. And some of the guys said, we need to write these down because we're all getting older and these are great stories. So I had some time on my hands and I did exactly that. I got in touch with some of the other guys, got some of their pictures to put in to add to it. And when we had the 50th reunion anniversary, I went ahead and got it printed as a memento for all the original 74 guys. And they loved that. They give it to their kids and their grandkids so they can know what dad did when he was in the battalion. Uh, then I got to thinking that, you know what, we've got even better stories from the SF time, but they were classified. And we were told, you don't ever talk about this. And there's the quiet professional, you don't seek the spotlight, you don't get out there. But I went down to visit the ODA that I commanded in 7th Group. They invited me to come down. And I took them some of the things that I had because they were saying on Facebook, we don't know what our history is. When we moved down to Florida from Fort Bragg, everything that was in the team room disappeared into someone else's man cave. And we have no idea what the team did before we got here. So I said, okay. So I took them down some of the stuff from Colombia and from Panama, left that with them, shared some of the history, wrote down some of the stories. And since it was going into their secure area, I felt comfortable in writing that down and giving it to them because it was their history and if classified information, but it would be stored in a classified site. And then looking at Facebook, I saw all the Studies and Observation Group, SOG.
Yeah.
They got their own Facebook page now. And they've got photos and they've got all their stories and diagrams of the fire bases and talk to some of those guys. And they say, well, after 30 or 20 or 30 years, if you ask, they'll let you talk about a lot of it, but you do need to ask first. So I wrote some of the stories that were TSSCI and double wrapped them, sent them to Department of Defense.
Right, top secret, top secret.
Special compartmented information.
Okay, thank you.
And sent them up to DoD pre-publication review. And they put it out among all the major commands that would be impacted. Took about 6 months for them to debate it. They came back to him, and the guy says, we've got the answers, but we have to send it back out again because some of the different organizations and agencies disagree about what is and is not classified. So sent it out again, and it came back, and they said, oh, what the hell? It's been almost 40 years. It doesn't matter anyway, but don't use this 3-letter acronym. Use this 3-letter acronym. And I told him, said, what's the new three? No, I've never heard of that. No one's ever heard of that. He said, yeah, but they said you can tell the story if you use those 3 letters and don't use these 3. Other than that, you're good to go. He said, okay.
So this new book, In the Shadows Between Wars, what's the premise of that book?
The premise is what's involved in becoming special forces. The first couple of chapters are not SF. It's a mental shift of, well, I don't want to be a civilian. I do want to be in the Army. And then being in the conventional Army after being in the Ranger Battalion and the shock to the system that was, learning how to be in the conventional Army. And then being around SF guys in Germany and catching the bug there that, yeah, this is something I really want to do. And then all the hoops and hurdles I had to go through to get there. There's a chapter on going through the qualification course at that time, what it was like, what you got to do to succeed. And then there's stories of being a A-team commander in Colombia when the drug wars were going on with Escobar, and being an A-team commander in Panama right after Just Cause, when we were sent down there and they pulled the combat troops out and they put us in groups of 2 and 4 in every compound across the country and said, okay, all these guys that we were fighting and killing, give them their guns back and you live with them and tell them they can't wear their military badges anymore. They have to be cops. And we were tripwires. And the theory was that if they tried to pull a coup and retake the country, first thing they'd do would be to kill us. And when we stopped reporting, that would let the guys in the canal zone know that a problem was coming. But do try to call and let us know if it looks like they're going to kill you. And be prepared to E&E. So there's stories about that. And then spent some time on staff. Then I went out to First Group in Okinawa. And we had a classified unit doing classified missions there. Really kind of surprised they let me talk about those, but they did.
Books come out. You can get it on Amazon. I'll have the link in the Ask Mike Radio show post. What do you want people to learn, see, or feel when they read these stories, Chris?
There's 2 target audiences. One are the guys that are in and have been in, and they never got to share their stories. So here's stories that have been reviewed that you can talk about, you can show your kids. It's a memento for them. But for the general population that really has no idea what the Ranger Battalion is or what Special Forces is or what they do or why they do it and the things that they go through. And we need that in our society. The books are my stories, but that's because it's easier for me to write. But they're not about me. They're about the organization and the people in the organization and the things they do. So the general public can learn a little bit more about that and have a greater appreciation for it.
At this stage, is there anything next for you? Are you still wanting to work and contribute and have a purpose in that way, or you lean more to being an author and exploring this side of your life?
I'm available. I get a contract offer every so often, but there's not very many contracts for a 71-year-old.
Get out.
It's getting tougher for me to jump over walls and climb up cargo ladders. I did have one, guys that wanted to, I guess that was about 4 years ago now, that three engineers wanted to go up the New Calabar River in the Nigerian River Delta, where you read about all the pirates,
Yeah.
because they were going to do a survey to look about putting a pipeline in the bottom of the river. And they had heard that it could be dangerous and they wanted someone to coordinate some security for them. And that was just too good to resist. So I picked that one up. And you remember that little white boat in the old Humphrey Bogart movie, The African Queen?
Yes, yes. I watched that movie.
We were on that boat going chuck, 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 chuck up the New Calabar River, up through the mangrove jungle, talking to the Nigerian Navy that had a German machine gun, had to be from World War II, with a 10-round belt of ammunition hanging off of it, figuring out how to negotiate through this because the pirates were there down at the mouth of the river and they were up deeper in the mangrove swamp. But there was kind of a live and let live attitude. You don't get in our way, we won't get in your way. And negotiating and threading the loop on that to go ahead and get the information those guys needed and then get them back out of there.
People connect with you, learn more about you and what you're doing. And maybe you're not jumping through walls or bounding up cargo netting, but you can tell people where the holes are. How can people connect with you?
Probably, I do have a Facebook page. That would be one place you could go. I have a LinkedIn page. That would be another way to access. Uh, I work part-time with a group called Tactical Solutions International. It's
Okay.
owned by an old buddy out in Wyoming. They've got a website, so they could reach me through one of those three.
All right. Well, I will have those links in the Osmic Radio show post. I mean, I just think it's really neat that, and the reason why I say this is neat, I think back to World War One, Chris, and how much information was lost, how much we don't know. There's plenty of books out there. Certainly, there's a lot of history books, but I've struggled to find eyewitness accounts of what trench warfare was all about and what shell shock was all about and what it was like to charge a machine gun nest, right? And so I wish we had those stories. I wish we had that knowledge. And so I think it's really neat, interesting, intriguing that you put this together for people like me who didn't serve in the Rangers and your fellow Rangers to read and learn from.
Yeah, and that was really the basic idea is there's much better stories than anything that I could write from people who know much more about the history and the tactics and the organization. There's a lot of great books on combat, and this isn't about combat, but it does talk about being in Colombia when Escobar is active, and no one really had cell phones, and laptop computers hadn't really come out yet. So if you didn't have a landline telephone, you couldn't really communicate. And how you navigate that world without all of the instantaneous sat
Yeah,
communication, helmet cameras, everything that everyone has today.
unreal, unreal. Well, again, I will put the book link in the Osmac Rio show post. I am talking to Chris Brewer, U.S. Army Ranger and Green Beret Special Forces. And again, just a treasure trove of knowledge. Chris, I want to thank you for coming on Oscar Mike Radio. I have learned a lot. I've chuckled a bit. And I certainly, for me, I definitely have a new appreciation for the mission and what the Rangers and the Army Special Forces do on a daily basis. Thank you so much for sharing.
And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Well, again, folks, I'll have all this information in Oscar Mike Radio show posts. I want to thank Chris for coming on. As we say in Oscar Mike Radio, we're mission in flight. We will see you next time.
The biggest fear Gold Star families have that their child will be forgotten.
We need to never forget freedom wasn't free.
It's the fact that they give us the life we have now. We should remember them and give thanks to them.
If I can be a part of something today that's going to make the surviving family of any of these veterans, these heroes, feel better tomorrow, then it's worth it.
That one wreath symbolizes one family that was able to smile because of the generous donations.
To sponsor a wreath and honor a veteran, visit wreathsacrossamerica.org.
Thank you for listening and watching Oscar Mike Radio, where our active duty service members and veterans are in action and the mission is in flight. Oscar Mike Radio is an oversized load Co-Sinister One production. If you are a veteran or know a veteran who needs help, please dial 988 and press 1 for the Veterans Crisis Line.